Again, well, we start with the usual scenario, the normal SCOM environment that you all are supposed to have. The tuning options, what are the possibilities? And after that, what happens when you have done your tuning and what can you do as a next step after that? So, the usual scenario. You have System Center, which is a whole suite of products. SCOM is doing the green parts, the infrastructure monitoring and application performance monitoring. SCOM itself, from an architecture point of view, has two databases, the operational database and the data warehouse. You have management servers, and you have agents. Agents go to the management server goes to the databases. Then you have your SCOM consoles. From the console, you put management packs into your environment, because you want to monitor things, so you need management packs. SCOM is out of the box quite empty, doesn't do that much. These management packs get put in the database and get sent to the agents. Sorry. The agents will, in the case of a discovery management pack, start to look, is this something what I should do? If something gets discovered, then workflows will start running on the agents. They will gather data and see if everything is up and running. They will send that to the management server, and the management server will put it in the database. So that's just from an architecture point of view, SCOM. SCOM is not that difficult. Apart from the default out-of-the-box SCOM and its management packs, we can also have some plugins. One of them is GSM, Global Service Management, where you will have a kind of agent inside Azure, inside the cloud, that will, from an outside point of view, monitor the availability of your website and the response time. Another one that used to be called System Center Advisor, which yesterday got renamed to Azure Operational Insights. So, apart from Orchestrator, this one is also gone. That's 2 system centers less. But 2 Azures more. Yeah. Advisor or Operational Insights will actually do extra monitoring, will give you the information from the support teams. Support teams within Microsoft are seeing a lot of problems coming up every day, and they see the patterns in these problems. Using what used to be called Advisor, they will put new rules. You can look at it as some kind of extra management pack, but the one that is managed from the Microsoft side. And they will alert you when configurations are wrong, when you're missing hotfixes, when you're missing service packs, things like that. Added functionality also in Operational Insights is that you can do capacity planning, and there's a lot more to come, but I'm not allowed to talk about that here. Yeah. So, you have your SCOM, and it's all running, it's all fine, it's all nice, but you haven't tuned it. So how does it actually look when your SCOM is not tuned? And now we're out of sound again. That's how SCOM looks out of the box. So it looks great, it sounds great, everything is nice, but SCOM is not considered something critical. I mean, who cares about SCOM? Unless the monitoring goes down, and then it's a big problem. The SCOM admin is usually also the kind of exchange admin, SQL, DBA, and some other things. The console, yeah, it's a lot of information, but it's slow. I mean, it's just too slow. It doesn't work like I want it to work. Idle, or even worse, more. Yeah, we almost implemented everything, almost. Those management packs, what's in it? Yeah, rules and monitors and discoveries, but what's actually in them? Then SCOM itself, from, let's say, customer experience, it's generating a lot of I/O on your database. And in some cases it might even be disastrous for your sound, that it's not keeping up with the load. Those reports, if you already have discovered them, then you realize, well, there's a lot of information in them, but it's not really what I want. I want other things from these reports. And the data warehouse, I mean, it's several hundreds of gigabytes at least. So it has so much information, and it still doesn't have what I want. So what can we do about that? Management packs. A management pack is basically just an XML file. It's just a collection of everything that will be monitored, all the rules, all the monitors. It's just XML. Nothing special, it's not rocket science. By default, management packs, when they come from Microsoft, they're tuned for the average environment. As we all know, we don't have average environments. It works in, let's say, 80 or 90% of the time, but for your specific environment, you need to adapt some things, which is called tuning. One way to view those unsealed management packs, if they are unsealed, it's just plain XML. You can view them in Internet Explorer, Notepad, Notepad++, whatever you want. There's also a tool called MP Viewer, and I'll show that later in the presentation. That slow console, well, let's say that the console is mostly SQL query based. So if your console is slow, start looking at your operational database, because that's the one that is most likely causing the slowness in your console. What can you do? Well, you might have some misconfigurations, like discoveries running every 5 minutes, rules and monitors running too often. So it's generating too much load, and you can tune that down by doing overrides. You might have too many groups defined. Group calculation is a heavy process on the management servers. If you reconfigure your groups that they are not calculating that often, or that they calculate in a different way because dynamic groups are really heavy, that might help also. Disk performance and latency between the management server and the database server, really important. Memory. If you give your SQL server only a few gigabytes of memory, that will not really speed things up, you know. If you give it a lot more memory that SQL itself can do its caching like it's meant to do, that will help also. there is a maximum memory setting in SQL. If you don't put that setting, SQL will take everything. And to give you an example, I had one customer where they had a SQL Server physical machine, 128 gigabytes of memory. They only had 50 agents because it was a test environment. SQL took 76 gigabytes. I mean, if you don't limit SQL, it will take everything it can get. So limit it. When you do that limitation, then your operating system will have memory to do some caching itself, which will also help. So actually, by giving it a little bit less memory, you will speed up the system. Max DOP, maximum degree of parallelism. Within SQL, you can define the max DOP setting. By default, it's 0, which means SQL will use all processors for doing its queries, for doing its calculations. If you have more than 8 CPUs, it's actually negatively impacting the fact that you're using more than 8. So if you have more than 8 CPUs, limit it to 8, but don't put it at 1, for instance, because then all your queries, even if you have multiple CPUs, will only run on 1. TemDB, you can split up the TemDB. That will spread the load over multiple files. Most of the actions in your SQL Server that is used for SCOM will happen in TemDB. So by splitting the load over multiple files, you will speed up environments. Keep it simple, which also means for the recovery model of the databases, they should be simple recovery model, not full. You could do a bit of re-indexing. I mean, the DBAs are usually quite happy to start re-indexing, but SCOM is doing this already. So it might help a bit on the operational database. Don't do it on the data warehouse. It's not necessary, it will only slow things down if you do it. And then the last one, at Microsoft we don't call things bugs, we call it features. Starting from Server 2008, we have a power management set. The same thing as you would have on your laptop, but on a laptop it's actually useful that to save some battery and to be able to work a bit longer, that you have power management. On servers, well, it's also enabled by default and it's balanced by default. If you put that on high performance, which you can do using group policy or just go to the server and change the setting, you might see a speed difference of 40%. So it's a small thing to do, but it really helps. But it's not a bug, it's a feature. Then, database sizes. You need to have at least 50% free space in the operational database. That's needed for doing internal calculations and things like that. If you have less than 40%, SCOM will alert you on it, unless you did an override on that alert and turn it off, which is not a good idea. Same rules apply for both databases. Grooming settings, you can keep the default, which is 7 days for the operational database, 400 days for the data warehouse. If you don't need that kind of data for that amount of time, put it at a lower setting. If you have 70 gigabytes with 7 days, you will have 20 gigabytes if you put it at 2 days. Might help. You might be over collecting, so you need to do overrides on your rules. you might be discovering too often, I mean, the usual tuning stuff. What you can also check is that internal job history table to see if the grooming actually completes. SCOM is grooming out data from the operational database, or should be doing that. And it keeps track of the process. If it's not one for every day, then the grooming is not working, and your database will only get bigger and bigger. In the data warehouse, there are 4 different staging tables. These staging tables are basically temporary tables that are used for just copying the data into the data warehouse. Then it gets aggregated, and then it gets put in the right tables and everything. These staging tables can contain rows because SCOM is all the time copying data from the operational database to the data warehouse. But it might go wrong. I mean, shit happens. And then you have more than 1 million lines in your staging table. And for some reason, that is slowing down the whole of SCOM, because it tries to read and write in that staging table all the time. If you have that issue, clean out the tables. And if you don't know or don't want to do it yourself, then open a support case. Also check the localized text table. There are some management packs which, sorry for the sponsors, are usually coming from third parties. They kind of fill up this table, and this is one of the tables that does not get groomed out automatically. Just that's something to keep an eye on. Tuning theory. Well, yeah, as it says there, it's not an exact science. It really depends on your own environment. It really depends what you want to get out of the monitoring system. And it's not something that is definitive. It's not like you do the tuning today, you're done. No, you're not done. You will have to revise everything once in a while. For closing alerts, when you have alerts coming from monitors, they get automatically closed, or they should get automatically closed. Once that the monitor decides, okay, everything's fine again, it should close the alert. Rules can also generate alerts, but they are not automatically closed, because rules don't affect the health state. They will not make your system go red or yellow. That's only monitors that do them. Don't close these alerts coming from monitors manually. If you do that, you take away the alert, but the system is still red. Which means even if it goes back to green again, when it goes red again, your alert is gone. You don't have a state change. You will not get a new alert, because SCOM still thinks that the alert is there, so I don't have to put a new one. You can reset everything using what used to be called Orchestrator, or another PowerShell script or something, just to reset all the health states if you have closed them manually. And you can use the Health Explorer to view the current health state. So then the tuning options. We do have management pack guides. I hope you all know that we do have those nice Word documents describing the whole management pack. Some of them are lacking. Like the SQL one is probably the best one we have. Really an extensive document explaining everything. Some others are not that good, but internally within Microsoft, they changed who is responsible. It used to be the product team, like for instance BizTalk. It used to be the BizTalk product team that was responsible for the management pack. Now it's the SCOM product group who is responsible. And they have to go to the BizTalk team to get information, and they will adapt the management pack. It contains a lot of information, these MP guides. Use this information. It's there. It explains you the monitoring scenarios. It explains you the security settings, everything. Use it. Then MP Viewer. Originally it was Boris Janusz Polski who made this tool. Daniele Muschetta updated it. The link is there, but it's easy to find using your favorite search engine. You do need to have the SCOM console installed, because the tool needs some DLLs that get installed together with the console. You can open sealed and unsealed management packs or management pack bundles with it. You can extract management packs into an Excel, and using that Excel, it's quite a lot easier to see which are the rules, which are the monitors, what is actually happening inside that management pack. But there's one shortcoming, the threshold settings. If you have like, okay, I should alert between these two thresholds, those are not exported to Excel, but you can see them in the tool itself. So if now the demo bots are okay, I will try to. Okay, this is not right. So I opened up the SQL management pack, and here you see that this is the SQL monitoring management pack. Here you see that there are tasks defined. Okay. There are no dashboards. There are dependencies with other management packs. And you have some aggregate monitors, dependency monitors, and unit monitors. For instance, if we take one here, disk read latency, something quite important in case of a SQL server. You see the knowledge that you also see in the SCOM console. And here you see how it looks in XML format. Here at the bottom you see the actual configuration for this monitor. So it will run every 300 seconds. If you say that, okay, this is very nice, very fine, but I don't want to run it every 300 seconds, I want to run it every 600 seconds. That's something you can do in the SCOM console doing an override, because these are the things that you can put an override on. What you also see here is the threshold. And that's the actual value that this monitor is looking for. So if you export this to an Excel format, this number 40 is not something you will see. But using the tool, you can actually see that also. Would be nice, I think. So, further tuning options, top alerts and events. I mean, SCOM is generating a lot of alerts, a lot of events are being collected. We do actually have two reports. One is called most common alerts, the other is called most common events. You can use these reports to actually see what is generated the most or what is going wrong the most. There's also a data volume per management pack report. It's also by default installed in your environment. And there you can actually drill down to see what is causing that most common alert or that most common event collection. So as a starting point, if you want to do your tuning, it is actually quite useful. I'm supposed to do a demo. No, I need this one again. So if you go to your reports, you will not have the approved report yet. There's something called the generic report library. And now my console crashes. Ah, cool. Very nice. Don't save your virtual machines, just reboot them. Yeah. Okay, that's a problem. The idea is that you see that most common alerts and most common events there somewhere. So it's good I have them already open. It's a small test environment running on this machine. It's not running all the time. So my most common alerts are actually advisor failing to connect to the cloud. It's not supposed to be like that, but just because this is a test environment. One other that you see here, my average wait time is too high for my database. If you look at those numbers, let's say you want to do some tuning. You take away those 3 in the beginning, and you actually take away like more than 80% of all your alerts already. So doing tuning, if it's especially looking like this, it's not that hard. You fix 3 problems and you got rid of more than 80% of your alerts. The same is true for events. I also had that one open already. And here in this case, I do have a problem with event ID 6022, which is just an informational event, but it's half of all the events that are collected. And if you then go to your favorite blog, the Kevin Holman blog, there usually find some more information, and in this case 6022 informational means that it's an event that is logged periodically to just test if event collection is working. So yes, this is not really useful to collect these things. I mean, yes, it's a test, it's something that SCOM writes into the event log and collects it again just to see if event collection is working, but you don't have to actually collect this. So this is something you can very easily just disable that rule that is collecting this from the event log, and you get rid of 50% of all the events that SCOM is collecting. So tuning is not that difficult, you know. Getting it to work at a presentation, that's something else. Okay. Then performance collections. That's kind of the same slide as always. One of the main things of SCOM is actually doing performance collections. It's something that SCOM is supposed to do, but you might ask yourself, am I not overdoing it? Am I not collecting too much? You can see performance data in the console using either the performance views, either the new performance widgets. There's a difference between those two, because in a performance view, you take the data, the raw data, from the operational database. In a widget, that one takes aggregated data from the data warehouse. So you do have less data points in a widget. But it does show you data for, let's say, 1 month ago until today, because you do have that information in the data warehouse. And of course you can generate some reports containing performance also. Then state changes. Yeah, same blah blah again. State change actually means your system is green, something goes wrong, system goes red. Everything's okay again, it goes green again. That change from green to red and red to green again, that's a state change. These might happen so often that you don't see them. So that the system is actually several times per second almost changing state, which means you don't see that in your console or anywhere else. You will only see it in the data in the database. Discoveries in Confiction. Confiction is when you're discovering a property that is changing all the time. For instance, like it says there, disk free space. You're discovering disk free space, but that's something, especially on a file server, it's changing all the time. Every time you get a new property, it has to go through the whole process again. That's Confiction. What can you do to fix Confiction? Don't import too many management packs. Less discoveries means less possibility for Confiction. Disable those noisy discoveries if you don't need them, or if you do need them, at least change the frequency that they are running. Sometimes it is just too bad to fix it, make a new one. And as always, don't use, let's say, small virtual machines trying to run a big SCOM environment. Your hardware needs to be able to keep up with all the demand. So, another demo. Let's go. So we're back to Kevin. and I also had the data volume by management pack open. It's another report. I ran it for the last month. And if you look at the first column, that is the actual volume, the data volume. SQL Server monitoring is causing almost 70% of all the data in my database. It's not discovery data because that's 0. Alerts is high but not the highest. The advisor one is higher. But look at the performance counters. It's actually, and that's by default, collecting a lot. And I'm not sure that this will work now. Let's try. No. And now my report is gone. Okay, good. The idea is that you click on that highest number, then it will generate a new report. And in that new report, you can actually see the details. So in this case, it would have shown me, okay, these rules and monitors, or in this case performance, these rules, are actually collecting all that data. And then you can go into the console, look for that rule, and start doing your tuning. Okay, so you've done your tuning. You're very happy, everything looks nice, you don't have too many alerts. Now what? Can I now go back to my normal day-to-day job? No. Tuning is ongoing. It's not something that you do and then you forget about it. Your environment changes all the time. You need to adapt the monitoring environment to also change. But it will be better because you've done the big part of the tuning already. Small changes in your environment will not cause too much damage, hopefully. With all the time that you save, you can start doing more corrective monitoring. Corrective monitoring meaning that you will start fixing things before the user actually sees them, before they start complaining, or before management starts complaining, even worse. So can't we just skip tuning and go to the proactive monitoring directly? Well, yeah. Not really, actually. You need to do some base tuning. It saves resources, it saves work for everybody using the product. And you need to classify your alerts before you can start doing proactive monitoring. If you don't classify, you don't know which alerts you can get. There's no way of actually working proactively and saying, okay, if I get this alert, this should happen. But before I get this alert, this and this will happen. You first need to know which alerts you can get. And that's also part of the tuning. So, I had a previous video showing one guy in a nice looking car, nice sounding car. One guy that was taking care of everything. He had to start the car, he had to keep it running. It's not that easy keeping something like that running. But what if you have a well-tuned SCOM environment where you have many persons, SMEs, subject matter experts, taking care of the SCOM environment and all the technologies supporting? How does that look? And I really hope we have sound now. Sounds, please. Yes.
Is it your team?
Is it your team?
No.
Where are you?
No, it's friends from Belgium, but still. I mean, the whole idea is here you have many people taking care of all the different parts. The guy in the driver's seat only has to focus on, okay, light goes green, I'm off. He only has to take care of his own environment, doesn't have to care about anything surrounding it. So having those subject matter experts surrounding you is a big help. And to get to this level you need SMEs. So now that everybody's awake again, now I can bore you further with dashboards. Challenges, yes. Let's say customers, let's say management. They don't really realize what is in the SCOM database. They don't realize what is possible for them. They want one-page overviews with everything. And then they come to the SCOM admin and they say, yeah, I want this and this and that. It has to be one page. It has to show me everything. Yeah. And then what? Then you can start making a report, which is not that easy because that's SQL report. Or you can, let's say, other options. You can start making service level dashboard. Management really loves this. SLAs, everything. There is a dashboard solution accelerator for Config Manager, for SCCM. That one actually works in SCOM also. So you can use that one to help you make some kind of dashboard. You can use Visio, because there's a Visio plugin that connects your Visio drawing to the SCOM environment. So you will get, let's say, an animated Visio where things go green and red according to what is happening in SCOM. As we see here today, there are also some partner tools. Probably a lot easier than doing it yourself. We do have built-in dashboards that come with management packs. We also now have script-based dashboards, that's those new widgets where you can use PowerShell scripts to actually create some kind of dashboard. You can publish the whole thing to SharePoint so that the guy from management can see in SharePoint what is happening, because you don't want to give him access to the console. And we also have, or had, Advisor, which is now Azure Operational Insights. There is also things like capacity management that will show you history, trends, and everything else. But together with you and us, we created something even better, the Approved dashboards. Because basically when we do something like a web as a service, the previous health checks, we're looking at certain things. Why not look at those things all the time? So we made a dashboard that shows you these most important things, the biggest tables and stuff like that, in one page dashboard. Looks really nice. And I guess I should show it now. I hope that still works. Where's my arrow? This is how it looks. So here we see in the first one the database size and all the tables in this database, which is taking what. In my case, because it's such a small test environment, my configuration table is actually the biggest one. And then performance, which is something that you would expect, because SCOM is collecting performance data. But then number 3 is state changes. And that's not so good, actually. Please check that state changes, managed entity type, and localized text are not in here. The noisiest monitors, so if you look here, we need to do something about advisor. Probably give it a network connection so it can send its data. The noisiest monitors of all time, still advisor. The performance counters, I do have quite a lot of these things. Data warehouse synchronization. Also have some SQL Server things. The events that I'm generating per day, not that many. But you see that the trend is going up. So that's not good. The top 3 tables, number 1, localized text, shouldn't be there, but I do have imported some really bad management packs just to have this one at the top. The rest is performance data, and that is to be expected. In the data warehouse, however, here you see perf hourly, which is also performance data. But you see state. I do have too many state changes. It's the number 1 table in my data warehouse. Not good. So I need to do something about that also. My noisiest discoveries. And then state changes within grooming period. I have 84% of state changes that are older than the grooming period of SCOM. And it's also a feature. Not all the state changes get groomed out as it should be. But as usual on the Kevin Holman blog, there is a post about cleaning up this grooming. And it's something you can do and then it's fine, and a few weeks later you will have to do it again. So it's something that is best scheduled to, let's say, run every 2 weeks or every month, just to keep your database clean.